Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
So, good morning, everyone. Warm welcome to this morning's session where we're going to talk about grief, and the griefs will now shift our focus to the more than me. That's the nature of online sessions. You might be at another point right now, and your grief might need to grieve something else. So do not feel any pressure upon your heart to feel anything else from what you're feeling right now. And I want to put today's session as an exploration of something which is dear to my heart, which is an open question, which is maybe the test of our spirituality on some level. Is my spirituality, whatever we call it, mindfulness, Buddhism, or anything else, deep enough and profound enough to bring us in touch with this sort of dukkha in the world right now? What are the answers? What are the tools? What are sometimes the questions available in my spiritual work when I come in touch with the bottomlessness of dukkha out there in the world sometimes? First of all, let's bring some thoughts around the framework before I dive in. It's pulling on me already. There is the chat box, and you made a wonderful job to support each other last few days. Please continue to do so. Please continue to share your compassion and share your grief and weave a network of Sangha here by showing up and holding the space for each other. Such an important work we do here. And if you have any questions for me or want me to respond to anything, you might just want to put it into capital letters so that I can find it scrolling through the chat box. I will talk for a few minutes now, and then we go into meditation. And afterwards, there will be time to share. Okay. Now, let me talk about the grief for the more than me. This is a session more dedicated to ask questions. Again, I believe these are questions which are all in our hearts and not having easy answers. I have a whole lot of respect for your own wisdom and for your own capacities. I do not want to give easy answers that would not be respectful. And I will share a few views, so please hear them as views and not as truths. No one sitting in front of you and teaching ever is sharing truth. They are sharing their views upon truth. And that is what I'm going to do today as well. So I want to touch about something which I find awesome, really full of awe of a capacity of us human beings, and who knows, potentially for more than us. And this awesome aspect of us is that we are able to feel for and care for and emphasize and be compassionate for others. Might feel like such a normal, trivial thing, but I find it awesome. The more I ponder upon it, the more awesome I find it. We are able to leave our own field of interest and extend. We are literally able to extend our heart, our awareness, our presence to the more than me. We are able to be in contact. We are able to resonate. That allows us to leave isolation and solitude, the extension of the heart towards the more than me, whatever it is. And that shows me that we are deeply relational creatures. We are made, we are wired to be in contact. We are wired for relationships. We are wired to be touched and touched. So that in the interdependence, this abstract word which flows through our Dharma circles all the time, is not an abstract idea. It's something which we can really feel. We can feel it by being touched, and we feel it when we touch others with the words and the actions. It's sometimes even the thoughts and the intentions we haven't. our sense of being and our presence, all of that. And not only that, there is a lot of interdependence, but our sensitivity and our awesome quality to care for and be with and resonate shows me that we're wired, we're really made for this interdependence. And pausing here, that has its lights and its shadows, of course. The beautiful aspect of it, the healthy, the nourishing aspect of it is that it allows me to relate to you and to create relationship. And all the Brahma Viharas, all the heart qualities, all the Buddha called them safe refuges for the heart. They are all interrelational qualities. Isn't that something to let in a bit? Like the metta and the mudita, the care and the friendliness and the appreciation, and even this holding you and in a healthy spaciousness, the upekkha, the equanimity. These are all interrelational qualities. And on the other hand, I'm touched by experiences I cannot control. And I cannot control whether I'm touched or not. And that is a bummer. We want to be sensitive and we want to be in a relationship, but this fact that we cannot control what touches us, that we cannot control the way we're touched. Or that's the shadow or the dukkha of interdependence. Now I'm sensitive. That means that the sensitivity will create all kind of echoes within me. Bring it back to the grief. There is usually a pretty simple connection. Our mind brings up a very simple connection between our sense of care and our sense of agency. If I see someone, myself included, hurting, the heart's response for it is to care for it and wanting to reduce the pain. Very simple connection. There is an urge and there is an impulse to care. Yeah. If no other dynamics would be present, it would be this simple. There is an urge and there is a sense for care. And I think this simple connection brings a lot of our current problems surface on base of that simple connection. I'll make an example. I went with the kids when they were younger because they haven't lost parts of their innocence yet. So they were pretty small still, and they had this amazing childlike innocence still. We went into the city and we saw a homeless person begging on the streets. And I remember how shocked both were. And they were asking me, why? Why is this person sitting here? And it was cold and it was, why is he sitting here when it's so cold? Doesn't he have anywhere to go? And I noticed in my way to respond to that, there were all kind of explanations came up, and all I managed to say to them was saying, "Oh, dear ones, that's really a complicated question." And both asked me for money for that man, and that was their simple connection between the herd and caring for it. That was what they were able to do in that moment. And what I saw in them was an urge. They were hurting, like seeing that person, and then a very honest and innocent form of grief. While I was standing there and trying to explain maybe my helplessness, maybe the sense of justice and injustice, maybe the sense of, why it's so complicated, why the whole world is so complicated in our social structures. But there was something in the children which was so raw and so innocent that it really touches me until this day. And sometimes when I approach this sense of innocent grief, I notice how much there would be to grieve. When I go into the home for the elderly, when I go into the hospitals, when I am in touch with the refugees, when I'm in touch with the prisons, a lot of grief can come up on moving within complex structures. And What does my heart do? Yeah, many times in our life, it's not so easy that we can simply do something. And there might be moments in our lives where I cannot do anything for the other. Yeah, and the simple one-to-one connection between ouch and agency, that doesn't work. I might not have the resources, time, or money, or strength. Yeah, I might not have the tools, or I might not have the skills to do something for you right now. And I notice you suffering. Or there might not be much to do after all. Like when you do hospice work, there's not so much to do actually. Yeah. But that can fight at the heart really. Like, let me, at least I would love to do something. And sometimes what I do will not touch the root of the problem. I can give money to the man on the street, but that doesn't touch the problem. The root is the problem. It will not change the underlying conditions which bring together the dukkha in the first place. And that coming together of the dukkha sometimes is so complex and so complicated that I don't even completely fathom it. Yeah. And it might be, and that is often the case for me in what I see, it's a systemic question. It's a question for society. It's a question for global interbeing, which feels so much larger than me. I feel dwarfed. I feel really small meeting that dukkha and knowing the complexity and the largeness of it all. And that does something to me. It does something to me. The less I'm in contact with this simple connection between ouch and caring for it, and the more it feels like I notice the ouch, but I can't find any ways to care, which will actually touch the underlying dukkha. The more helpless and the more angry I can become. I can have a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, and it might even lead to a lot of bitterness within me if this simplicity is nowhere to be found. So when we're in touch with the dukkha of others within systems which feel larger than me, a lot can happen to my heart. And I just want to quickly remember us how media works. Yeah. And that we are daily confronted with news and pieces of information and images. And a part of how media functions, and there are beautiful, insightful documentaries on Arte, German, French, RTV channel, which you can look into. I found them really insightful. So what I took away from them, that we are exposed to amounts of information like no generation before. We are, that's one of the military language. We are again and again exposed to images, to words, to phrases. And unfortunately, it's violence, rage, and fear which gets our attention quickest. So we are exposed to violence, rage, and fear and expressions of that all the time. Yeah, it's clickbait. They want your attention. And I find the Buddha's words to safeguard the sense doors more important than ever when we're in touch with the media. And I noticed the impact of too much media exposure on my heart immediately. In the beginning, there is sadness and grief. And then there is helplessness and hopelessness. Or sometimes anger or feeling charged and not being able to act upon that healthy anger, which arises from a fierce compassion to say, this does not feel appropriate. And what follows, if helplessness and hopelessness arise, or anger, is for me numbness. I don't know about you, but I have spent a lot of time in numbness these past years. Another short excursus of thoughts, which I just want to put out there for you to mull over, is that the storyline of my life has changed a lot. I'm a child of the 1980s. And part of my, let's say, growing up myth was that we are on, as a global or also national community, society, we are improving. It's going upwards. It's tedious work and we have to stand up for it. But the general feeling sense was, yeah, we're working towards more compassion, towards more kindness in the world, to more social equality, step by step, but we're doing it. And somehow in the past years, I've had a feeling that this storyline of mine is crumbling, and it doesn't feel like that anymore. And I noticed I had to wake up to the fact that I need to grieve this too, that this was some underlying current, almost not noticed by myself, that things are getting better, but I just need to patiently put the work in, but I'm part of something larger, but we're working towards the better. And that storyline has crumbled for me. And a lot of the fear and a lot of the despair and a lot of the helplessness and then the numbness came out of this story not working for me anymore. I had a sense of division, I had a sense of solitude, I had a sense of there are so many conflicts in the world, and there are very few people I can come together with having the same direction as I do, that I feel more and more and more isolated. Yeah. And the more and more and the more isolated I feel, the larger the problem and the larger the dukkha gets. So I'm reducing my sphere of action because I feel not so much interconnected anymore, while the problems due to the media exposure feel like they gain. Yeah. I wonder your thoughts on that. We can share in a minute. So what do we do? My only point for now is that I want to share my grieving and I want to hear yours. And that, as we did on the first day, that's the only thing to do right now. Because if we, my feeling is if we do not remember, the old sense of sati, of mindfulness is to remember. We do not remember our grieving for all the dukkha in the world. We easily enter, and you might be familiar with this in the past years, a fight of views. We get in conflict with each other about the causes and conditions. Where does this come from? Who is responsible? Who has caused this? Who is the problem? Who is the initiator? And so on and so on. And we find and we get into conflict about the appropriate response with each other as well. And we fight about who is the one to blame. Yeah. And then we blame each other. So over all these fights of views, we generally lose our sense of sadness and grief. We're out of touch with it. Yeah. And the other thing is, we sometimes only think that we have a choice between overwhelm and oneness. I know, and I've worked with those who are in deep overwhelm, who will not and cannot sometimes, due to their open hearts and their high degree of sensitivity, go into numbness. So they get all the exposure all the time, not being in touch with the dukkha in the word. That leads into anger and bitterness and even hatred at times, or into co-suffering, where we add our suffering to the suffering of the word, and then there's just one person suffering. Yeah. And the other option, and I notice my heart doing that, is numbing out. I need to function. I need to be here for the kids. I need to work to make ends meet. I do what I can do was my option for a long time. So somehow my circle of perception was getting smaller and smaller, like, let's do these Sangha live sessions and the other courses I'm offering, and let's go into the word and have like kind and nice conversations with others and numb out the larger picture. And I just noticed the past months or in the past year, it's not really working. It's not really working for me. I don't know about you, but I notice an underlying current of bitterness. I notice an underlying current of aversion towards people who I consciously or unconsciously claim to be part of the problem. Yeah. So I can notice subtle currents of aggression. So there isn't really numbness. It's because the bitterness is finding its way into my actions, into my thoughts, and into my words. And I really honestly ask myself what the middle way is. And maybe tomorrow we can explore this together. A middle way between the numbing and the overwhelm. But what I really want to do with you today is to acknowledge our grief for the word, if you're up for it, or acknowledge our numbness for the word, or acknowledge our anger and our bitterness. They are all, I hope I could get that clear, they are all aspects and facets of the same thing. And I do not want an opinionated discussion. I want to grieve for what I see and you see with you. And I do not want to vent with you, and I don't want to give you, out of a sense of deep respect, any simple answers for complex questions. But what I want to do is to offer you a space where you can grieve and name what you see and name your numbness and see what that does to us. It's an open experiment. I cannot carry, and you cannot carry, all this burden on your own. But I'll offer to carry some of it, and maybe by extending our sense of community again, we can lay back a little and say, wow, I'm connected to so many here. How many are we today? 90 people. Connected to so many today that I can lay back a bit and say, I'm not alone in this all. Okay. Great. Let's go into meditation and soothe our hearts and maybe appreciate the anger and appreciate the numbness if it's there, because we know that it's there for a reason. Allow your heart to feel what you're feeling, and then we might extend into a sense of more than me. Okay. If you're willing, you can find yourself a posture you want to practice with today, sitting, standing, lying down. You could walk up and down because that might need some movement. Just listen. Start the practice with listening in words. My words have touched something or haven't touched something. Looks totally open. And it could be anything. It could also be resistance. It could bring up some concern. And that is warmly welcomed as well. Just acknowledge what comes up for you right now. And while the heart is open and moving, or while the thoughts are trying to sort it out and integrate what is said into your views and structures, and just also feel from where in the background maybe the connection to the earth. We're still connected. There can be turmoil and connection to the ground. Feel the hands on the lap, on the thighs, feel the feet on the floor. I also feel breath moving my body. And then you can ask and give your heart permission to grieve a little. Maybe it's the day-to-day structure of the rat race, just making ends meet. Maybe it's the deep sense of isolation, which we can feel in a highly individualized world where everyone is supposed to make it on their own. Maybe it's this deep sense of longing for connection and being held in something more than just me. Where's my tribe? Where are those who hold me? And in the background, the breath, the connection to the earth, and the air element, the space element around you, surrounding your body. An immediate safe space where no one is pushing and pulling, no one is demanding or asking you to do anything or be anything. And maybe you see it in the daily life, in the work you're doing. Maybe you are in service and you notice how service can be impacted by the systems the service functions in. Maybe you are under this pressure of caring for others and noticing how it never really is enough. And you might notice how your heart reacts to this lack of, to this not enoughness, pressure upon your own heart, anger, bitterness, numbing it out because you need to show up tomorrow after all. That imperfection, that is dukkha, and we can grieve that too. And you might want to grieve the conversations we try to have with others, where we try to express our grief and our fear or our sadness and our helplessness. Because we cannot hold that well together, we end up in a fight of views and opinions, in a fight of blame and guilt and right and wrong. So what I really would love to do is to express my grief over what I see and feel. You might want to grieve the cynicism and the bitterness, maybe even the silences, which I choose instead of expression. And in the background, like a beautiful rhythm, like the beats of the drum, there's the breathing rhythm, there's the heart pumping, there's my connection to earth still and to the spaciousness around. You might notice the fear within, the self asking, what will become of me? What will happen to me? What will happen to my beloved ones? All the children and the grandchildren, all the children. And there can be a deep pain in that as well. So approach it gently. Maybe it's the grief of the heart that we cannot protect what we lost. We cannot put ourselves in front of it and say, may nothing happen to you, or I stand my ground. As much as we want, we notice again and again that we cannot do this. Not wholly, not completely. Or we need to grieve that too, that we cannot protect what we love. Even if we give our very, very best. You might notice your own thinking mind bring up all kind of yes and buts and other perspectives and explanations, and to see how the grieving process can activate the thinking mind. Maybe it's afraid that we fall into hopelessness and despair, and it, for a reason, it might have its wisdom saying, I do not want to despair. And maybe this is a moment to come back to the earth and the breathing, saying, right so, to add our suffering to the suffering of the word. It's not the contribution I want to make. And we feel the earth underneath, the strength in our bodies, the spaciousness around. And in the middle of that holding, we can listen to the heart singing a song of grief. I wish it could be another way. I wish this could be different. I really wish this weren't the case. And then we bow to our hearts, bow to the numbness that's still lingering there, bow to the anger, bow to the bitterness, bow to the sadness and the grief. Our heart is for permission to feel what it feels. And we bring our attention back into hands and feet, into the body, and the rhythm of breathing, to doing the grounding work we need to do. Enough for now. Maybe the body has obtained a grieving posture. So consciously moving out of grieving, putting down that work for now. What other posture can you find? Inviting the awareness once more into that which feels solid and stable, that which feels spacious and free from pressure, free from demands, free from intrusion. Spaciousness around you is a glorious absence of all those things.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.